So the next person who's going to present is, you've already heard from him, and you'll hear from him again. It's Chairman Valentin Lopez, and he is going to present a proposal on support for the efforts of Indigenous peoples of California. Please welcome Chairman Lopez to the stand.
Thank you very much. I'll try not to yell this time. Our tribe, when we developed our land trust, we have 4 objectives. Our objectives are conservation and protection of our cultural and sensitive sites, research, to research and restore that indigenous knowledge of our ancestors, because we had lost a lot of that knowledge. Third is education of our tribal members, but also education of the public about how to steward the lands. And then the fourth one is to develop a stewardship corps so we can start working in the landscapes now and restore indigenous management and stewardship to the lands. We've been very successful in doing that. What we learned is that at first we thought that research was going to help us restore our knowledge, but what it's doing is really validating a lot of the knowledge of our ancestors and the way they stewarded and managed those landscapes. For example, the way we would burn is we'd take a look at a landscape and divide it into 3, 4, 5, 7 segments and burn one segment each year. And that kept that catastrophic buildup of fuels and stuff like that. And that right there would avoid all of the catastrophic fires that we have now. So today we're working with fire scientists at Berkeley, and we're working with a lot of fire councils and CAL FIRE and other firefighters to try and restore the traditional ways of burning. Regarding the way we manage our plants and stuff like that, I said that our plants had to take care of a community. Well, in the 1960s, there was an epidemic with all commercial vineyards across around the world. The way they addressed that is that what they learned is that the rootstock of the California grape was resistant to that disease. It's much more resistant to fire and flooding and drought. And so today around the world, they all have the California rootstock, all vineyards. And the same is true for strawberries, and the same is true for walnuts, and the same is true for so many other plants. And that's incredible. Regarding the way we manage the oceans, we want to restore seaweed, as I said. Seaweed is important for absorbing nitrates and carbons out of the water, and that'll take care of that. Shellfish, they take toxics out of the water. And so we want to do that. And then our plants. The central coast of California was a coastal prairie. Today, we're cutting down trees and restoring that coastal prairie because those coastal prairies are the most biological diverse for taking care of the insects, the fungi, the animals, and the birds that are so important. And so we're working actively with state parks and many other land managers on doing that. So restoring indigenous knowledge, indigenous landscape management is so important to helping us address the issues of climate change. Secondly, I talked about Eurostock a little bit, but so many of our sites have been destroyed. Haven't Native Americans given enough already for the destruction of our cultural and spiritual and traditional sites? We ask you to please don't, whenever sites come up and stuff like that, let them, let's work to let the decision makers, the governments know that enough is enough. We're not going to allow that destruction of native sites anymore. In 1978, it only applied to the recognized tribe. It only applied to the recognized tribes. Therefore, it's illegal for us to have ceremony today. Whenever they find remains, if they find 3 remains and they're not native, that's recognized as a cemetery. But for Native Americans, if they're Native American remains, it's okay to rip them out and continue the construction. Why don't we have equal laws there? I remember for a Safeway market in our territory, they dug up the remains of 188 of our ancestors, and we had to rebury them at another location. That's just disgusting. They cannot return the remains of our ancestors. Today, all the universities, Berkeley has well over 11,000 remains of ancestors, and those remains cannot be returned to us. That's the greatest violation of our spiritual beliefs. We need to protect and work with tribes to help them restore their cultures, their spiritualities, their environments, and allow them heal from that historic trauma. And finally, perpetrators must heal from their historic or soul wounds as well. Perpetrators need to recognize that you cannot treat people as Native Americans have been treated and believe that you still have moral authority and correctness. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Chairman Lopez. Very, very important for us all to consider, think about all this, and really act on it. All right. The next proposal is a letter of support for Barcelona and Camus. That's Juan Reardon from Richmond, a longtime co-activist in Richmond. Actually managed a lot of my campaigns, a great person. So let's give it up for Juan Reardon.
Hi guys, it's a pleasure to be here. Listen, there's progressive activists, there are progressive activists working all over the world, fighting the local struggles in Asia, Africa, Latin America, Europe. I believe that as the CPA gets stronger, it should extend links of friendship with all the peoples doing similar struggles for progressive change around the world. Today we have a request from Barcelona en Comú, which means Barcelona in common. The purpose of this, it's a request that came from them. They are, let me just tell you a little bit about them. Barcelona en Comú is a citizen coalition that was born in 2014. It brings together individuals from left and green parties from the area of Catalonia and Barcelona, and they have shared a common project of a city based on radical democracy, social justice, and the feminization of politics. In 2015, they won the city elections against all odds, and they have a wonderful woman mayor. Over the past 4 years, they have achieved important policy victories, building and buying public housing, fighting evictions, setting up a municipal energy company, making Barcelona a sanctuary city when so many other Mediterranean cities have refused accepting the refugees from the climate miseries that are emerging northwards. Anyways, a lot of good things they have done, showing that it's possible to be a city that has a different set of values. Their values, as a matter of fact, and mission of Barcelona en Común dovetails with the CPA values and mission. They are now facing an important election to ensure that Barcelona remains a beacon of urban democracy and transformative change. And that's why they're asking for peoples around the world to send them an embrace. And this is what this letter is. I encourage us to consider sending them such an endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say it's really clear to many of us that the revolution has to be international, right? I mean, so being in solidarity with similar movements in other countries is exactly what we want. So now the next one is, and I hope she's here, I haven't seen her here, it's a code of conduct for us. Is Hemming Cho here? Hemming has presented here. She comes. She's going to share with us a summary of this code of conduct that she presented for us to vote on tomorrow. Hemming, please. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
Hi, my name is Hemming Cho. I wanted to let you know that I've been so grateful to be invited here, and I've been grateful to Gail and to the committee and to this community for all of the work that we're doing, all of what we're trying to bring together. And I wanted to alert you to the documents that will be, I think we can distribute these, or they might already be available online. So there are three. One is, this is presenting all, right? One is the CPA Code of Conduct. Another one is the setting up grievance officers. And the third one is a pledge so that we can read through, and at our events, people can know kind of a short synopsis of what we're trying to do here in order to create a safe organizing space for all of us. So first, I wanted to talk about the CPA Code of Conduct. The reason to have a code of conduct is that all of us have been hurt, not just perpetrators, not just victims. We have deep wounding from early childhood and beyond when you look at all of our histories, whether it's Ireland, whether it's Native peoples, whether it's Pacific Islands, whether it's African descent. And we need to notice and heal those harms, because then when we go into society, we bring all of that injury with us, and we either heal it and find a proactive way of interacting with others, or whatever is in shadow, whatever we have not acknowledged in ourselves, we project onto others. And anybody here who has ever been abused and has not healed that abuse will then become an abuser, unknowingly, but become an abuser in your communications, in your boundaries with one another, in our agreements, our words, our actions, and the way we organize, right? And so that is why we want to set forward this high ideal for all of us to approach in the most positive way, the best of who we can be, and to organize together so that that is what comes out. And then if people are harming other people, if people are marginalizing other people, if people are unwittingly just taking up too much space, talking too much, putting too much energy out in a way that is shutting other people down, that is silencing others and making it impossible for them to be in the same space on an equal level, then we just need to speak up kindly, ask people to learn what that is, and then to bring that person back, into dialogue, either in nonviolent communication negotiations, in counseling, and to rehabilitate all of us, because we all have responsibility to ourselves and one another to heal from these harms. Oh, it's okay. That's all right. That's great. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to say is that this is the why, the Code of Conduct, and you can read it. And then the second thing is that it sets the ombudspeople or grievance officers. I've gone back and forth, and I think I'm going back to grievance officers because I think everybody knows what that is. Ombudsman is a beautiful Swedish word. Grievance officers are there. There are two of them. Between them need to have LGBTQ identity, male and female identity, straight identity. People of color need to be represented. And if there are two, then they can work in cooperation with one another when a grievance comes up, when a misunderstanding comes up. And what's great about this is because they're independent of the steering committee, nobody feels like they have to get involved when they are personally knowing people already, and they may feel not underskilled to adjudicate in those situations. They should not be in the power structure if they're helping the claimants and the abusers to come together and have a fair decision. The third thing is, I think all of you saw in the yellow schedule on the back is the pledge. And I think that there is a mistake because there should have been a paragraph about anti-sexual harassment. And so I'm going to edit it and try to send that out again. We passed out a white paper with a signature line on it, and that was it. But I wanted to thank you all for being here and for the beautiful energy that you're bringing. My name is Heming Cho, and I've volunteered to be the grievance officer for this weekend. If anybody is feeling unsafe or not listened to, please feel free to come up. Thank you.
Now, a couple people presented a proposal, submitted a proposal, and they could not be here, so I'm going to present the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act proposal. This is the reform of Prop 13 proposal. So I think many of us know about this. Let me just give you a few quick lines about it. This is a long overdue reform of Prop 13 that will not raise taxes on homeowners, renters, or small business owners. This initiative simply closes the Prop 13 corporate loophole that allows a small number of wealthy investors and corporations to save billions of dollars by not paying property taxes at fair market value. So this is going to be on the ballot, as was mentioned before, in 2020. So it's something that we really want CPA to be involved in and to take a stand on. There's a couple other things that this was presented to me by Ben Grief, who's with Evolve, who's one of the key partners in the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act Coalition. And he says here that we cannot truly consider ourselves a progressive state if we spend less in per pupil education funding than other states and offer an enormous tax break to corporations like Disney, like Chevron, like Wells Fargo. This is more than that. They get enormous amount of tax breaks. And if we pass this reform of Prop 13, we'll reclaim over $11 billion a year for local schools and communities. So we definitely think this is a good thing for CPA to support. The action request simply says, we request that CPA endorse the Schools and Local Communities Funding Act that will close the corporate loophole that exists in Prop 13 and not raise the taxes on homeowners, renters, or small business owners, and join the movement to reclaim California's future by making corporations pay their fair share. So that's that. We also got another proposal here is for support for performing arts and public works of visual art. I'm someone who believes that art plays a major role in our revolutionary movements. And historically, that has been the case, and the Renaissance really helped to make changes in that period of history. We're in a really important transition stage in our period of history as well, and the arts need to play and are already playing a huge role, but we need to do more to help the arts. So this proposal is suggesting an application process for performing artists, musicians, dancers, theater groups, etc., to demonstrate eligibility, like by a number of paid gigs that they have put on. And once eligible, they would have a listing in a statewide database, and they would then receive a stipend from the state, like several European countries do. And in return, they would agree to present some free public performances for the people in municipalities and in the state at large. So it's a grant program for public art available to artists who partner with municipalities, school districts, or Caltrans for art in public spaces. So basically, the action request is to please consider creating model legislation to share with the California legislature for a grant program along these lines that would be available to artists who partner with municipalities, school districts, or Caltrans. And this was presented or was submitted by Len Bea, I believe is how you pronounce his name, from Santa Cruz. I might have pronounced his name wrong, but Len is from Santa Cruz and presented this proposal. The last proposal is the platform proposal for CPA. Now, this is coming from our interim steering committee, And we just put a lot of things into it that we thought progressives, have agreement on, and there may be other things. Let me read what we have. Initial platform. And of course, from year to year, we will have more things, or maybe some things will get passed and we'll take it off the platform. Right now, it's what we're suggesting is Medicare for all, free public college for all, close the commercial property tax loophole of Prop 13, a network of municipal or regional public banks for California, a California Green New Deal, break up PG&E and transition to public ownership and or community choice energy programs, end refinery pollution and increase regulations of the fossil fuel industry, bold climate solutions and promotion of renewable energy, a millionaire's tax, progressive in nature, a public program for very low, and moderate income affordable housing, fully fund public education and end charter school expansion, police accountability, end the privatization of prisons and reform the criminal justice system, including restoring voting rights to the California citizens who are currently incarcerated in state prison or on parole. Sustainable development, ban fracking, universal basic income, promote union organizing, build local grassroots political power, campaign finance reform and public financing of campaigns, ranked choice voting, publicly owned election systems for public elections using public software, corporate proprietary software prohibited, racial justice in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, women's rights, immigration rights, refugee rights, indigenous rights, LGBTQIA rights, worker cooperatives, and end all discriminatory practices in all our institutions. So that's what we came up with. Thank you.